Chris Hoke is in the building. How are you, Hokey?
Man, I'll tell you what, it is so great to be with you guys. This is the highlight of my bye week, right? Highlight of my bye week is being here with the legends.
For Salem's Market and Grill.
Oh, well, of course, that's always a huge plus.
That
we know that
doesn't hurt,
Salem's
does it?
Market and Grill, when their food is coming here
Yes.
shortly, listen, we want all our listeners to know that if I go, hey, Starkey, and there's no answer, he's out there eating his food, stuffing his mouth.
Yes, I am,
Yeah.
which I will be shortly.
Which I don't blame you.
Ron, would you like to say hello to Chris?
I have said hello to him.
He's so kind.
He's a very nice man. We got a lot to talk about.
Who's the nicest man in the room right now? Hokey?
Oh, right.
No.
By
you
far?
and I are both jerks.
Jerks,
No,
yeah.
Comparison.
I think Cookie kind of hits the kind
Yeah.
the kind meter. Pretty
All
good.
right, the Steelers are 3-3 at the bye week. Not exactly sure how they got here. I would have predicted.
Yeah.
I don't know. I would have predicted they beat Buffalo, but they're 3-3. All things considered, what do you see when you look at them?
Well, listen, 2 weeks ago we were sitting here and it was like this is going to be a nightmare season, right? And now they're back in the thick of it. I mean, if they went to the playoffs today, if today was the end of the season after 6 weeks, they'd be in.
That's what Joe pointed out
They're
to
the
me
seventh
other
and
day.
final seed, and I mean, listen, there's a long way to go. There's 8, 9, 10. The Broncos, Chiefs, and Browns are right on their tails, and it's just a matter of tiebreakers. So there's a lot of football to be played, but the arrow's pointing up. Maybe it's not as steeply up as we would like, but they're getting better. They're improving. And I think this bye week comes at the right time. They've got to get some guys healthy and work on some little details defensively and maybe the focus of some guys offensively. But I think all around, when you're on a 2-game winning streak right now and going 3-3 after where we were 2 weeks ago, that's a positive.
No doubt. At the same time, I think a lot of people looked at the Seattle game and said, you're going up against what has been the worst defense in football,
question.
or one of them. You're going against Geno Smith. You're going against some backups on offense, and you barely survived. How are people to feel about that one, Chris? Mixed feelings?
Yes, in that locker room, they don't. Coach Tom always says, we're not trying to get style points, right? They're not all about they're about winning games. And when you play Sunday Night Football, you know it's going to be a battle, prime time. There's a little extra on the line there because you know everybody's watching, so you're going to get a little extra from everybody, whether you like that or not. The Steelers were up 14-0 at halftime, and they were dominating the yardage, the time of possession. The Seahawks came out and just took it to the Steelers. I mean, they came out and they had a mindset that they were going to run the football, and run the football they did. Because in the first half against the Seahawks, they leaned too much on Geno Smith. You know, if you look at it, in the first half, there were 14 passes and 5 runs. I mean, you have a backup quarterback on the road against a pretty dang good Steelers defense, and they're running the ball. They're running the ball 5 times out of 19 plays. Second half, they come out, they go 20 runs and 16 passes. There was a shift in mentality at halftime, and they got after the Steelers.
Well, I may disagree with you when you say a pretty doggone good defense because I haven't seen it the last 2 weeks. They almost blew a 24-6 lead against Denver the week before.
Yeah.
Why are teams running the ball down there?
Well, there's a lot of reasons.
Now, missed tackles I know are a huge
20-plus missed tackles in this game.
Now, are you buying? I heard Butler talk about this, and you know what it's like. They don't get to hit in practice, so you don't really practice tackling. Is that a factor?
Well, we never. But when I was playing, we had a pretty dang good defense, didn't we? We're number one in the NFL, I think, out of my 11 years. And it's not because of me. I'm just saying, during those 11 years, we're probably number one in the NFL 6-7 times.
Right.
Right, and we were top 10 probably the other times. We didn't practice tackling in practice.
Okay.
You know, you don't tackle in practice, but there's a difference where you can be physical in practice, right? We carried our pads every day, and even when we got to the middle time of the season or later in the season, we'd come out in our pads. You guys remember this? I mean, we come out in our pads and we do individual and we do 9-on-7, which is just a full-on run drill. The offense would line up against the defense and say, we're going to run the football, and you know it, try to stop us. And we would do that for like 12 to 15 plays on Wednesday and Thursday. And then we take the pads off. But they can't do that now. So they can't be physical. And so in order to be physical, you got to practice physical. And so that's kind of the struggle. But it's again, I think it's funny when Coach Thomas says popcorn. He's kind of a funny phrase. But it's not the same guy every time defensively. And if you go back, and I watched this film probably 3 times since Sunday. I've watched the broadcast version again, and then I watched the All-22. I watched the end zone view. And there's many reasons why they get gashed in the run game. The second half, plain and simple, the Seahawks offensive line got after the Steelers. They got after them, and they were knocking them off the ball. They were getting a hat on a hat. Guys couldn't get off blocks. And, you saw late in the game, Isaiah Buggs started that second half. Going late in the game and over overtime, who was playing nose tackle? Mondu was playing nose tackle over Buggs. I mean, Buggs was short on a lot of blocks. I mean, he was playing on the nose, and he was shooting to the right side A gap, coming underneath the guard, leaving a huge gap for like a 10-plus yard run. Another time in a tilt, he got underneath the guard again, big gash in the defense. Devin Bush wasn't getting off blocks. At times, even the great T.J. Watt would get upfield too far. He'd open up those holes vertically, excuse me. He would get upfield, and then he wouldn't slide down. Maybe when the run was going away, like a stretch, instead of squeezing that and being tight to the line of scrimmage, they would open up the hole. He'd get upfield, and the cutback lane was there. So there was a lot of different reasons of why the run game worked for the Seahawks.
How much are they missing Alu and Tuitt? And I know you're close to Tuitt. What are you hearing? Is he getting closer?
They're very tight-lipped about Tuitt. You don't know about Tuitt. I don't know if anybody really knows what's going on with Tuitt. You hope he comes back because they're going to need him. Because Cam Hayward's playing his tail off. I mean, this guy's unblockable. I mean, even when there's times when they're stemming and they're moving and he's not even in a stance, he comes out and these guys can't move him.
What do you mean by stemming?
Stemming.
You throw out some terms that Ron and I are very confused about.
Stem is when, if there's a motion or change of strength on the offense, right, where they move a guy like a receiver in motion, or they pick a tight end up off the line of scrimmage and move him and put him back down the line of scrimmage. You stem and you move, you shift, or if you line up on the inside shade of a guard and then you move to an outside shade of the guard, just get them thinking, get them hesitate and pause for a second. Those kind of things. It doesn't happen very often, but when it does. And maybe he gets caught not in a stance, he's still getting guys stymied at the line of scrimmage and making plays. I mean, he's just playing lights-out football right now.
I'd love to watch film with you one day and watch as you break down the defense, because I would love you to tell me, you mentioned Bush, you didn't mention Schobert, and I went back and I focused specifically on him, and I could pick out at least 5 plays where it looked like he was on a pair of roller skates and went off the screen.
No,
you talk about not being able to get off blocks.
Yeah. Well, listen, and I can go through every single guy if you'd like, and we don't have time.
Let's go through him because they went out and acquired him.
I think him as well. I think they're getting blocked, right? And sometimes they use the momentum to block him, right? When that play that I'm talking about, a stretch play is kind of like a sweep play. They stretch. The running back gets the ball, and he's stretching one way or the other, and the offensive line just reaches to the next man. And then he looks for that hole, and a lot of times that cutback lane's there because everybody's flying to get front side to the ball, and then they just use their momentum to kind of shield him, and that running back can cut back. And if that outside linebacker, you look Alex Highsmith, he made a great play when they tried to cut it back off the backside tackle, and he was right there to make the play, right? That gap a lot of times is open because you get an outside linebacker who gets a little bit aggressive, gets upfield, and that cutback lane's there, and you can get 4 to 10 yards very, very easily. And the linebackers flow so hard that all the backside tackle's got to do is just push him in the hip, and he goes flying because he's flying front side.
Your man Keith Butler said something the other day that I found a little bit distressing.
Okay.
They traded up to get Devin Bush. They traded for Joe Schobert. And he said, there's some things that Bob Spillane does better than those two guys.
I've been saying
He's
that.
a free agent. What's up with Devin Bush? And again, I'm trying to give him every benefit of the doubt because he's coming off of a major knee injury.
I mean, listen,
he's just not doing
that's
anything.
the reality of the NFL, guys. And I'm just going to be honest with you. Robert Spillane's a heck of a football player, I believe. Yeah, does he have some deficiencies? Sure he does. But so do the guys out there on the field right now, right? Devin Bush and Schobert have some deficiencies. And I'm just going to be honest, right? I think that Spillane's a better run stopper. I think he's a better run stopper. You look at the tackles. You look at the tackles for a loss. You look for the plays that are made at the line of scrimmage. Linebackers got to play downhill. They can't play lateral. Spillane plays downhill. And so I think he lacks a little bit in the past game, but he's not horrible. But you look at Devin Bush. You asked why I brought up Devin Bush and not Joe Schobert. Devin Bush, they traded up to get him. He was a 10th overall pick. Schobert, what they give up, a 7th round pick? That's a difference. You got a guy, a 10th overall pick. He should be an absolute monster out there, and he's not.
Why?
Well, I think Cookie said, you're giving him a little bit of slack because of his knee. I don't know. I mean, he's a little undersized. He's got great speed. Undersized, so he gets swallowed up by those linemen. So if you watch what the Seahawks did, they didn't try to run to the sideline and get down the sideline. They ran right at the Steelers. They took it to him. And so when you run at Devin Bush and you put a tackle and you climb a tackle or a guard right up on him, he has a tough time hat and hands in him, putting his hat in hands and extension and getting off blocks. That's not his strength. You remember I've said this before on the radio, Ryan Shazier. I mean, that wasn't his strength, the hat and hands to get off. So he found a way to use his quickness and his instincts to either get over the top quick or he'd come back door, which you don't endorse as a coach or a player. But he was able. He had the athletic ability to go back door on a blocker and still get down the line and make plays.
Ron, may I interject for a moment?
Sure.
So I've seen other inside line. Sam Mills comes to mind,
Okay.
5'9", 5'8",
Yep.
whatever he was. If you're coaching Devin Bush, what is he capable of doing that he's not doing? I realize he's small. There's going to be
Yes.
certain times he's overwhelmed, but other guys overcome that by being incredibly physical or smart or something. How are you coaching him up?
Well, he's got to go. I think you get a read and you got to go. You got to fly to the ball. And I think sometimes he's slow to go. Once you're able to determine, it should be a split second. You got to see where it's going. He's got to go and he's got to play downhill. Football's a game of angles, and you can't play at a 90-degree angle. If you know what I mean. You can't play right or left. You got to play at 45-degree angles or sharp. And you got to come downhill as a linebacker, and that's not happening. And in my opinion, what I see on film. And so you've got to be decisive as a defender and a linebacker. A guy like Sam Mills you're talking about, those guys see it and they go. And it's a reckless abandonment to the football. And maybe it's because Devin hasn't had a lot of reps. He's still a young guy. I mean, think about last year. He tore his ACL early in the season, right? Comes back. He's coming off an ACL. And it takes guys a little longer to really get in the flow. And the hope is he'll get there. Hope is that he'll get there. But right now, in terms of the run game, I think if you want to stop the run, I think Spillane is better in terms of in the box.
You said, 20 missed tackles? How many missed tackles?
20 or more.
How many did Minka have in that game?
Minka had three or four missed tackles.
We keep wanting to have turnovers from him, and I get that. Yeah. I would like him to make a few more tackles.
Yeah, and listen, he has missed some big tackles. I mean, Javonte Williams, what was it, last week or 2 weeks ago when he missed the tackle and he cut inside and went for a 45-yard run down to the 1-yard line or so. When James Pierre ran him down.
Saved him. Saved
the TD. And he's missed a couple big tackles like that. They're asking him to do a lot of things. I think, Minka's not just sitting back at the free safety spot. They're asking him to come and play a little bit in the slot. They're asking him to do a little more than he's used to, and we're used to watching him do. And so maybe he's thinking a little much, still not fully comfortable in what all they're asking him to do, and it'll come as the season goes on. That's why Coach Austin, I think, it was very forthcoming in saying those plays will come because he knows what kind of professional Minka is, and as he gets more and more comfortable when we get going in this season, we're not even halfway through yet, you're going to see that come around because he'll be able to really get in the flow of the season at those different areas they're asking him to play.
Well, that raises some interesting questions, too, because they gave up precious resources for him. Since November 22nd of last year, 0 interceptions, 0 forced fumbles, 0 fumble recoveries. And Terrell Austin talked yesterday and said exactly what you're saying. He does a lot more for us this year in terms of getting lined up and where he is and all that stuff. Is that the main reason? Like, if he were just playing center field, he would have more opportunity for these? Because I would think moving around, he would have even more opportunity.
Yeah, but the thing is, at free safety, and that's where he was just playing, he was able to settle in. And you only have one responsibility, that's the free safety responsibility. Now he's playing free safety. He's playing a little slot. He's coming down and doing things that he hasn't done the last year and a half, 2 years since he's been here. And so it's just a matter of just the familiarity. I think a lot of it, too, is you look at it, these guys don't play in preseason, get real snaps. So this is kind of like, we're only 6 games into this thing. That's why I believe you'll see, they believe that he'll come on. He did force a fumble there late in the game before the DK Metcalf fumble and the whole shibboleth that took place there at the end of the game. He hit the receiver over the middle and the ball came out. He recovered it right away, but he did cause a fumble right there.
How's Edmonds playing?
I think Edmonds is fine, right? Again, is a first-round draft because you're expecting some of these big explosive plays defensively, and you're not getting them from him. He has a pick, right? But overall, I think he's playing solid. I don't think Minka's playing bad. He's just not making the big plays that we expect from a guy of his that you expect him to make, who is an All-Pro.
Man, it's going to be interesting when they take on the Browns and
Yeah.
see if the Browns are 3-4 or 4-3 going into that game. Let's talk next about the AFC North and about the other side of the ball. And I want to ask you, Chris, about one player in particular who seems to be getting better and better and better. I want to ask your opinion.
And I got a question about a guy who seemingly disappeared. Who's
getting worse and worse and worse.
And worse and worse, at least in terms of usage.
Different sides of the spectrum, right?
Yes. Chris Hoke, brought to you by Greater Pittsburgh Plumbing. You